Good afternoon and welcome. Barriers. Real, perceived, artificial, necessary, irrelevant, intrusive. There are all kinds. Well, I'm here essentially to speak to you about why we need to destroy these barriers. And the one thing that we all need to do is to persevere. No matter what the barrier may be. If it's unfair, you need to persevere. If you don't persevere, the barrier will only get stronger. Irrespective of the barrier. So you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying and you fail. And you keep trying and you persist. That's when the barrier gets broken and success appears on the horizon. So that's what we'll speak about. So barriers are of different kinds. What are the 5 things that we actually need to remember to break a barrier? Firstly, is the barrier has to be an unfair barrier. It should require to be broken or destroyed. If it's to be destroyed, it should be destroyed yesterday. That's the first thing. Second thing is, having broken the barrier, we need to know what we want to do thereafter. Otherwise, the barrier will rebuild itself. So you need a vision of how far ahead can you go. Further, the better. Thereafter, you need multiple things like the ability to create the change. For audiences such as this, it's not about change management. It's about identifying the change point in the future, post the destruction of the barrier, and then there is communication, collaboration, creating a team, the passion, the perseverance which you require, last but not the least, the tenacity and the resilience, and we will speak about all of this in a bit. But first of all, this black screen behind me is your brain, ladies and gentlemen. And the circle is the barrier. Currently, all our minds work within that barrier. Because those barriers are there, should we choose to accept them. In many ways, this is not really a circle, but this is a prison. And this prison not only encompasses your mind, but if you were to view these bars as your mind, then it imprisons your brain. So my argument is, all of you must endeavor to free your brain from the confines of your own mind. So don't say it can't be done because it hasn't been done. Everything is done the first time. Let's be the ones to do it. That's my prayer for all of you. Sometimes you need to bend the mind and let the brain go. That's where creativity happens. So figuratively, let's bend these bars. Let's bring that barrier down. Let the brain go out, explore, come back with the knowledge, filter it through the processes of your mind, and give us that outstanding product. That is what creativity does, and this is how it works. Because at the end of it, we have to win. Otherwise, we will let the barrier win. Now, whether it is the brains or the barrier, my argument is they're all in our mind. And for people like you and me, they're between our ears. So we not only create the barrier, but we are endowed with the infinite capacity to break that barrier down, bring that capacity out. That is when barriers will get broken, which is the theme of your TEDx conference. But through all this, this is how we go through life. When we are born, we have a capacity to run. It's an infinite capacity, but it lacks direction. So sometimes you're confronted with a barrier which will align you all. So some barriers are good as well. Some aren't. I'm arguing that we bring down the barriers which aren't good. So as you go through, suddenly you realize that the barrier is not about you. It's the social fabric we live in, which is a team, which may be your workspace, which may be your classroom, which may be your family, which may be society. As you grow a little older, the size of this machine goes up till it finally becomes a machine as complex as this, which is why I argue you need collaboration. You need the power to communicate your vision. You need to create a team which will help you fight that barrier or bring about change. Without a team, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we will all fail individually or together. Through all this, the one thing that's constant is your brain. Keep that brain working and everything else will be fine. The day you let the brain vegetate, nothing new will come out of our lives. Everything new has been created by that person who dared to think different and think big. This is our lives. Let's make it happen. No, but while you're doing all this, you must remember that this is a constant. This is the DNA in your body which is changing even as I speak and is changing in our lives. This is consistent. It's a irony to say that change is constant and it's continuous. If it's constant, how is it continuous? But that you can figure out later. But this is what changes and this is what it does. So why? When you look at horizon, if you want to break a barrier, then don't let the horizon be the front end of this room. Let your horizon be as wide as you can possibly see or have the capacity to see. Sometimes our capacities will be enhanced by the capacities of the teams that we work with. That is where collaboration comes in. Think big, ladies and gentlemen. That is when we will create change in this world that we live in. Horizons have to be huge, you know. And constantly the two questions you must ask is why? And having asked why, try and look for what next. Because if you just stand back and shout why, nobody's going to listen to you. You have to convince the person or persons or system which created that barrier why that barrier is not important or required or necessary today. You also have to convince that person what comes next. This is your job as creators of this vision. So whether it is the horizon or whether it's the barrier, on the other side of the barrier lies spectacular successes, which because of the barrier we may not have seen. That's where you need your brain to go out and imagine and explore the hitherto unexplored. That is what we do. So what is my essential argument? Look beyond. Look beyond what you can see. Look for 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. Let's look at India in 2070. Let's look at the world in 2070. Even in India in 2050, you are going to have 350 crore young children. Look at 2050 and see what we are doing about it. Look at flowers, look at industry, look at dance forms, look at culture, look at education, look at social fabrics. You pick your barrier. Everywhere there is a barrier that's waiting to be broken. You are the people who are going to break it. So let me just give you an example of how you can make a difference to what we live in. This is a theory of the domino. It's pretty simple. All of you all know it. But essentially how it works is it starts with a domino that's 2 inches. This is 2 inches. So the theory is very simple. Every domino has the power to knock down another domino, subject to certain criteria. The second domino will be 1.5 times the size of the first domino. So if the first domino is 2 inches tall, just 2 inches, ladies and gentlemen, just watch what happens when the dominoes, the 18th domino, this is 2 inches, it's just the 18th domino, it's as tall as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It started with 2 inches. So don't tell anybody else, I'm just one person, how can I make a difference? You're the 2 inches. Just 18 dominoes down the road, Leaning Tower of Pisa. The 23rd one is even better. Some of you all would have visited it, it's the Eiffel Tower. The 31st one is even more spectacular. It's Mount Everest plus 3,000 feet. But the 57th one remains my all-time favorite. It's the distance between the Earth to the moon, and you've started with a domino that was 2 inches tall. That is your effort. So knock that domino down, you will face resistance. But how we overcome resistance is through multiple ways of, it's all there behind me on the screen, you can read it. All of these are important. Education is paramount. Teamwork is paramount. Ability to handle failure is paramount. Seeing that change point is paramount. They're all important. Look at this tree. The one word that comes to my mind when I see this tree is, I will not die. This tree is refused to give up. That is tenacity. And then there is resilience, and of course there is leadership, which you will provide, and then you will get success. Simple. There are only 3 ingredients to this formula, successful formula. That's it. So I beseech you to explore all of these things. Let me just give you a little relationship between tenacity and resilience. On the vertical axis is efficiency, and on the horizontal one is the time taken. What you do in your normal life is tenacity. You struggle with everyday life. There are ups and downs. That's a tenacious part that you're living. You're going through life normally till you hit what is called a brick wall. This is a major obstacle. It could be a barrier. Now, when you hit a brick wall, typically a company's efficiency drops down drastically. It could come down to as low as you want to let it go. You could be an individual, you could be a multinational 8,000 crore pharma company. Efficiencies do drop. What happens is, sometimes you may not even be allowed to come this far. In time, the brick wall may be a lot bigger than you think, the barrier may be a lot stronger. This is when you let your mind get to one side and apply a new solution for a new problem. The mind only knows old solutions. It's the brain which will create the new solution, find that solution, and then you will find the graph going all the way up. This is the part of resilience. The willingness to not give up is the tenacity. The ability to bounce back from there is the resilience. And for this resilience, you need numerous qualities which are all listed on the screen. All of these are important. We've spoken about them. But what do great leaders like you do? They visualize and anticipate the arrival of this brick wall. They realize what comes next after the brick wall. They are able to anticipate the oncoming disaster. Now, they build into their teams the ability to handle this disaster, and they fill this gap. So now you're, as an individual or as a company or as an entity, you don't necessarily drop in efficiency. You will follow the horizontal path. Of course, it will have its ups and downs, but it will not have that spectacular disaster which would otherwise have happened. This is the role of leadership in breaking a barrier. Very simple. At every level, small, large. But, how does all this work? You have to replace the I with the we. If you try and do it alone, the system, whatever system it is, will crush you. It has to be a we. It's always a joint effort. So you have to look for like-minded people. You have to build your case, develop an argument, convince people, collaborate, communicate. This is what team building is all about. Whether it's breaking a barrier or just making a success of your company, these are critical issues. Why have I shown you a diamond? This is the city of gems and jewels. This diamond hasn't just happened, doesn't just happen. It's subjected to some of the most enormous pressures that Mother Earth can put on an object. Having dug it out from the earth, we subjected to the most horrendous grilling, drilling, mining, polishing processes. And there is a diamond. Now this diamond has broken the barrier from lying undiscovered, unexplored, somewhere in the recesses of Mother Earth, to adorning the fingers, ears, and bodies, or bank lockers of millions of people the world over. That is the process, the furnace, purgatory, if you wish, that we have to go through to break a barrier. If you're not prepared for this journey, ladies and gentlemen, breaking a barrier is going to be a difficult job. Because the barrier has been created over time. Breaking it will require all of these skills and more. I think at the very end, when we look at resilience, you've got to take inspiration from probably the smallest creature in the world that lives at the bottom of the ocean. It's called the tardigrade. It just won't die. It can survive at minus 45 degrees, plus 45 degrees. It's gone to space. It's lived in a thermos. It comes out looking like this. This is perseverance at its best. Just won't die. Of course it dies. But it doesn't die easily. It puts up such a solid fight that all the barriers come down. So that's critical when you want to break a barrier. We need to take an inspiration from the little microscopic 0.5 millimeter creature which lives at the bottom of the ocean. In the end, the choice that we have is to be the architects of a glorious future. That's a choice we have. Should we not take that choice, we will become the defenders of a certain decline as a civilization, as a human race. Because when we have to look for either leadership or change or progress or happiness or indeed breaking barriers, don't look outside because they're all inside jobs. And since they are inside jobs, my argument is, each of us is responsible for creating the barrier, for also bringing down a barrier when it's time to bring it down. So at the end of it, while all this is for the future, today is as important. So enjoy the sights and the smells and the sounds and the noises and the relationships and the human experience of living today in a fantastic world. That will make your life very happy. Thank you.